An old man begins telling a chilling tale that's been whispered from village to village. It starts like any ordinary monster story. A demon with the head of a slug brutally wiped out an entire family. But the ending is what turned it into a legend. Just days later, the demon's severed head was discovered nailed to the village gate, a grim warning for anyone who saw it. The shocking part? The one responsible wasn't a seasoned warrior or a famous demon hunter. It was the family's only surviving child. He was said to be just 10 years old. And as the rumors spread, people stopped calling him human. Whatever that child had become, the villagers believed he was something far more terrifying. The story shifts to a mysterious traveler standing before the gruesome sight, the demon's severed head still hanging from the village gate. Even someone accustomed to death pauses at the scene. He quietly confirms that this must be the village everyone had been talking about. Looking at the monster's remains, he admits he never expected to feel pity for a demon. Whatever happened here wasn't a simple hunt, it was a massacre. The stranger is then revealed to be Mongrion, a renowned demon hunter who has come to uncover the truth behind the horrifying rumors. As Mongrion approaches the house, the villagers' desperate pleas echo in his mind. To them, the child wasn't a survivor, it was a monster wearing human skin. They begged him to eliminate it before anyone else fell victim. At first, Mongrion considers the possibility that the rumors might be true. A demon disguised as a 10-year-old child would explain the villagers' fear. But the more he thinks about it, the less the story adds up. Even if dozens of children attacked together, they shouldn't have been capable of killing a demon. And judging by the sheer brutality of the corpse beheaded and its head displayed at the village gate, the one responsible possessed terrifying strength. Whatever waits inside, it won't be ordinary. Bracing himself, Mongrion slowly opens the door, expecting to confront a terrifying creature. Instead, he comes face to face with a small child. The boy timidly looks up and asks who the unexpected visitor is, his voice carrying more confusion than hostility. Mongrion calmly introduces himself as a demon hunter. The child's expression shifts ever so slightly as he quietly repeats the words, "A demon hunter." Not exactly the reaction Mongrion expected from someone rumored to be a monster. Looking into the child's emotionless eyes, Mongrion finally understands why the villagers were terrified. To them, those empty eyes alone were enough to convince themselves he wasn't human. But Mongrion isn't so quick to judge. His gaze drifts to several rough graves nearby. The dirt covering the boy's body tells the rest of the story. He buried his own family with his own hands. Somehow, despite everything, he's managed to survive for days without food or water. The rumors don't match the scene before him. Instead of drawing his weapon, Mongrion places a bowl of porridge on the ground and quietly tells the boy to eat. The child stares at it in confusion. He can't understand why a demon hunter would feed him. Weren't they supposed to kill monsters? The villagers had clearly sent Mongrion here for that very reason. Then, with an unsettling calmness, the boy admits the truth. The villagers had always hated him, even before the massacre. His lifeless eyes made everyone uneasy, and after they witnessed him killing the demon, they became convinced that he was the real monster. Rather than seeing a child who survived the impossible, they saw something they wanted gone. Instead of interrogating the child like a criminal, Mongrion quietly sits beside him and asks him to tell the whole story from the beginning. The boy's memories reveal a nightmare. A demon mercilessly butchered his family, leaving pieces of their bodies scattered across the floor as it feasted without restraint. Hidden inside a wardrobe, the terrified child could do nothing but watch his loved ones die. But that helplessness didn't last forever. Consumed by grief and vengeance, he tracked the demon back to its lair. He sold everything his family owned to gather enough money, bought information about the monster's weakness, and carefully prepared his revenge. Armed with nothing more than a bamboo spear treated with salt, the 10-year-old confronted the very creature that had destroyed his life. The final image says it all. A blood-soaked child standing over the fallen demon, its head pierced clean through. Back in the present, Mongrion pieces together the unbelievable sequence of events aloud. The boy survived by hiding, spent days planning his revenge, learned the demon's weakness, and somehow succeeded where even experienced adults often fail. There's only one question left. Why did he cut off the demon's head and nail it to the village gate? The boy answers without a hint of hesitation. The demon had eaten the heads of his family, so he simply returned the favor. His emotionless reply sends a chill through the air. There isn't rage or pride in his voice, only cold resolve. Mongrion studies the child's eyes one last time. The story sounds almost impossible to believe, yet those eyes show no sign of deception. He also knows that while a salt-packed bamboo spear is the proper weapon against a Wadu scholar demon, merely knowing its weakness is nowhere near enough to guarantee victory. For a 10-year-old to accomplish such a feat, it borders on the impossible. Yet the evidence standing before him leaves little room for doubt. As Mongrian reflects on everything he's learned, the pieces finally come together. The boy possessed the unbreakable resolve to pursue revenge after witnessing his family's slaughter, the determination to uncover a demon's weakness, and the courage to act on that knowledge without hesitation. Those aren't the qualities of a monster. They're the qualities of a born demon hunter. Issei quietly breaks the silence, admitting that now his revenge is complete. He has nothing left to live for. All he wants is to die beside his family and bring his lonely journey to an end. Instead of offering sympathy, Mongrian suddenly flicks the boy on the forehead, snapping him out of his thoughts. Only then does he realize he never asked the child's name, Issei. Mongrian smiles faintly, commenting that it's a fine name before asking a question that catches the boy completely off guard. Did killing the demon and displaying its head truly repay his family's deaths, or had he simply convinced himself it was enough? The question hangs in the air. Mongrian reminds him of everything that was stolen from him, his family, his future, even his desire to live. Compared to all that, can the death of a single demon ever be enough? Without waiting for an answer, Mongrian turns and walks away. The villagers hired him to kill a demon, but after seeing the truth with his own eyes, he refuses the request. Issei isn't a monster. He's just a boy who survived hell. Left alone, Issei can only watch Mongrian disappear in silence. For the first time since losing everything, someone looked at him and saw a human instead of a monster, and he doesn't know how to respond. When Mongrian returns, the villagers are stunned to see him empty-handed. They can't believe the so-called monster is still alive and immediately demand to know why he refused to eliminate it. Mongrian gives them a simple answer: because the boy isn't a monster. No matter how closely he examined him, Issei was unmistakably human. Instead of accepting his judgment, the villagers desperately try to change his mind, even offering to pay him more if money is the issue. But Mongrian isn't interested in a bigger reward. He's interested in the truth. Mongrian asks the villagers a question they've probably never asked themselves. Why do they hate that child so much? Their answer is exactly what he expected. They insist Issei's lifeless eyes were unnatural, claiming they always knew he would bring disaster to the village. To them, his appearance alone was enough to brand him as a monster long before the tragedy ever happened. Hearing those words, Mongrian doesn't hold back. In his eyes, the real monsters aren't hiding in the forest. They're standing right in front of him. The villagers are left speechless as he condemns them for judging a child simply because he was different, because they couldn't understand him. Mongrian warns them that hatred and resentment don't just destroy people, they create the very evil they fear. The more darkness they harbor in their hearts, the more they invite demons into their lives. Even after hearing that, the villagers refuse to reflect on themselves. They stubbornly insist that Issei was the one who summoned the demon in the first place, clinging to their prejudice instead of facing the truth. Realizing words alone won't change their minds, Mongrian slowly removes her hat. A single horn emerges from her head. The villagers immediately panic, stumbling backward as they mistake her for a demon. Mongrian calmly corrects them. She's not a demon, she's a dokaibi, a supernatural being who chose to stand alongside humanity and hunt demons instead of joining them. Then she delivers a final warning. If they ever lay a hand on Issei again, they'll have to answer to her. Before leaving, Mongrian points out the bitter irony. To people blinded by prejudice, she and Issei are no different. Anyone who looks or acts differently is instantly labeled a monster. With that, she cancels the mission and walks away, believing the villagers have finally understood. Unfortunately, she couldn't have been more wrong. The moment Mongrian disappears, the villagers' fear twists into anger. Instead of reflecting on her words, they convince themselves that the demon hunter was simply another monster protecting one of her own. If no one else will save the village, they'll do it themselves. So they choose violence. Torches are raised, and before long, Issei's home is engulfed in flames. The mob cheers as the fire spreads, believing they're driving evil out of their village once and for all. They laugh, claiming they should have burned the house down long ago. If Issei has nowhere to live, he'll be forced to leave forever. The village chief is the loudest of them all, shouting for everything connected to the monster to burn. Their fear has completely consumed their humanity. But as the fire rages higher, something far more terrifying answers the hatred filling the village. The ground trembles. From the blazing inferno, a gigantic tree-like demon emerges, its massive body crowned with eerie purple flames. The same cursed fire begins spreading among the villagers, swallowing them in an instant. The creature doesn't even acknowledge the panicked crowd. Its attention is fixed on one person, Issei. The boy can only stare in stunned silence as the monstrous figure slowly advances toward him, a demon. The villagers wanted to destroy a monster. Instead, their hatred invited a far greater one to their doorstep. The towering demon attacks without warning, firing a human skull from its gaping mouth like a deadly projectile. Issei barely avoids a direct hit by throwing himself aside, but the blast still sends him crashing into a nearby wall. As he struggles back to his feet, his eyes widen. The graves, his family's graves, have been completely destroyed. The one place that still connected him to the people he loved is gone. In that moment, Issei realizes the nightmare isn't over. The demons didn't just take his family. Now they've stolen even his final wish to one day rest beside them. Around him, the villagers have become little more than puppets under the demon's control, their eyes glowing an unnatural crimson as they attack without mercy. Even the village chief wears a twisted smile, no longer acting like himself. Issei tightens his grip on his axe. He once believed he had already lost everything. But fate proves there's always something else to take. Mongrion's words echo through his mind. Was killing one demon really enough? Or had he simply convinced himself it was? At last, the answer becomes painfully clear. With a furious roar, Issei charges straight into the possessed villagers. He fights with everything he has, cutting through anyone standing in his way. But the numbers are simply too overwhelming. They swarm him from every direction, dragging him to the ground before he can reach the true enemy. Pinned beneath the relentless mob, Mongrion's words continued to ring in his ears. He lost his family. He lost his reason to live. How could killing a single demon ever repay that? As the towering demon watches with a satisfied grin, victory seems inevitable. Then, out of nowhere, an axe comes spinning through the air and buries itself directly into the demon's eye. Despite being completely overwhelmed, Issei had still found an opening to throw his weapon. Looking up at the monster, he finally understands the path he must walk. His revenge was never meant to end with the demon that killed his family. It will only end when every demon in existence has been wiped out. Using the last of his strength, he reaches toward the demon, determined to keep fighting even as his body begins to fail. His arm slowly falls, but before it can hit the ground, another hand catches it. Mongrion has returned. With a single powerful stomp, a shockwave erupts beneath her feet, instantly tearing apart every possessed villager surrounding Issei. In the blink of an eye, the battlefield is cleared. The boy who thought he had been abandoned finally has someone fighting by his side. Mongrion stands between Issei and the towering demon, praising the boy for having the courage to face such a monster despite his small, battered body. Then her gaze shifts to the villagers. Compared to the child they condemned, she calls them truly pathetic. She reminds them of the warning they ignored. Hatred, resentment, and evil deeds give birth to demonic energy, and that very energy attracts demons. The tragedy that destroyed their village wasn't necessarily caused by Issei at all. It may have been their own accumulated malice that summoned the Wadu scholar in the first place. Her final command is simple. If they have any shame left, they should apologize to the family they failed to protect. Instead of accepting responsibility, the villagers recklessly charge at her. A fatal mistake. With nothing more than a casual flick of her finger, Mongrion unleashes overwhelming power, reducing the attacking villagers to pieces in an instant. The difference in strength is so absurd that the battle ends before it even begins. Realizing brute force won't work, the massive demon lets out a deafening roar. It never gets the chance to make a second move. Mongrion lazily waves her hand, and the enormous creature is sliced apart as if it were made of paper. For such a big brute, you sure are noisy. The fight that nearly claimed Issei's life is over in a single effortless attack, revealing just how terrifying a true demon hunter really is. With the battlefield finally silent, Mongrion walks over to the exhausted boy. She recalls the vow he made only moments ago, to exterminate every demon. Rather than discouraging him, she nods in approval. He made the right choice. She warns him that walking this road may consume him with vengeance, but as long as he survives, there will still be brighter days waiting ahead. Then, without another word, she lifts the exhausted Issei onto her shoulder. Until the day he's strong enough to fulfill his vow, she'll raise him herself. And just like that, the lonely child who had lost his family, his home, and his reason to live finally finds something he thought was gone forever. A future. And a mentor who believes in him. Sometime later, Issei slowly regains consciousness. The gentle flutter of a butterfly is the first thing he hears before his eyes finally open. Waiting quietly beside him is Mongrion. Noticing he's awake, she calmly greets him. Before Issei can even gather his thoughts, she introduces herself once again. She's Mongrion, a demon hunter. And if he resents her for saving his life without asking, she's willing to accept that resentment. Her words trigger a flood of memories. The towering tree-like demon, his family's graves being reduced to rubble, and the moment Mongrion carried him away from the only place he had left to call home. As the memories settle, Issei returns to reality with a heavy heart. So, it wasn't a dream. The destruction of his family's graves was real. The last physical reminder of the people he loved is gone forever, forcing Issei to face the painful truth that there's no returning to the life he once had. From this point on, the only path left before him is the one Mongrion opened, the path of a demon hunter. After waking up, Issei removes the bandages wrapped around his face and is surprised to find that not even a single burn scar remains. Realizing Mongrion healed him completely, he sincerely thanks her for saving his life and caring for him, even admitting that the Dokaibi must be an extraordinary race. Mongrion can't help but notice how calm he is despite knowing what she truly is. Most humans would fear a Dokaibi on sight. Issei simply shrugs it off. She told him she wasn't a demon, and more importantly, she treated him with kindness. That's all the proof he needs. Hearing that, Mongrion quietly realizes something. Unlike the villagers, this child carries no prejudice in his heart. With the atmosphere settling, Mongrion brings up the proposal she made before. Will Issei follow her and learn the art of exterminating demons? She explains exactly what she's offering. She'll give him a place to live, train him until he can stand on his own, and help him gain the strength needed to one day fulfill his revenge against every demon. To anyone else, it would sound like the opportunity of a lifetime. Issei, however, narrows his eyes. The offer sounds too perfect. That alone makes him suspicious. His cautious response earns a small smile from Mongrion. He's sharper than she expected. Mongrion decides to be completely honest about what lies ahead. If Issei chooses to follow her, his new home won't be among humans. It will be deep within Dokaibi territory. Although Dokaibi are different from demons, they still possess demonic energy. Their homeland is saturated with that power, creating an environment so hostile that ordinary humans can barely survive there. Accepting her offer won't simply mean becoming stronger. It means leaving behind the human world and stepping into a realm where surviving each day is a challenge on its own. The first true test on Issei's journey to becoming a demon hunter. A powerful purple aura begins radiating from Mongrion as she gives Issei one final warning. Her training won't be difficult. It'll be hell. Every single day will push him beyond his limits, leaving him with no chance to rest. Instead of hesitating, Issei smiles. Hell, to him, that's exactly what he wants. If he hopes to exterminate every demon one day, ordinary training will never be enough. Only by surviving a living hell can he become strong enough to fulfill his vow. Without another moment of doubt, Issei accepts her as his master. Seeing his unwavering determination, Mongrion can't hide her surprise. She had intended to intimidate him just a little, but it's obvious now that nothing will shake his resolve. She simply tells him to eat and recover first. The road ahead will be long, and he'll need every bit of strength he can get. Once Issei has recovered, the two set off together, traveling deep into the mountains. As they continue walking, the atmosphere gradually changes. The air grows unnaturally heavy, sending chills down Issei's spine. Unable to ignore it, he tells Mongrion that something about this place feels wrong. She calmly explains that the entire area is saturated with demonic energy. To keep him safe, she orders him to stay inside the sacred rope marking their path. Stepping outside, it would be a fatal mistake. At his current level, he wouldn't have the strength to find his way back. Before long, Mongrion comes to a stop. They've arrived. Standing before them is a massive gate leading into Guisu Temple, the territory of the Dokaibi, and the place Issei will now call home. A warning engraved at the entrance makes one thing perfectly clear. This is sacred land protected by spirits, a domain forbidden to humans. Anyone who enters is meant to turn back. As they stand before the entrance to Guisu Temple, Issei hesitates for a different reason than Mongrion expected. She's convinced he's finally become nervous about entering Dokaibi territory, but that's not what concerns him. Instead, Issei quietly asks whether she will get into trouble for bringing a human into a place forbidden to humans. His question catches Mongrion completely off guard. Even now, he's worrying about someone else instead of himself. Amused by his kindness, she reassures him that there's nothing to worry about. No one in Guisu Temple would dare question the orders of its head. Issei blinks in confusion. The head? Before he can ask what she means, Mongrion pushes open the enormous gate. The moment the gates swing open, Issei freezes. The gloomy mountains vanish behind him, replaced by a breathtaking landscape unlike anything he's ever seen. The temple is surrounded by vibrant scenery, its peaceful atmosphere making it feel like an entirely different world. For the first time in a long while, Issei is genuinely speechless. Mongrion notices his reaction and can't help but smile. Quite the view, isn't it? As they walk farther inside, Issei spots countless figures living throughout the temple grounds. So, those are all Dokaibi. Issei's arrival immediately draws attention. The residents stare in disbelief, whispering among themselves. A human has entered Guisu Temple, something that should be impossible. Before the rumors can spread any further, Mongrion raises her voice for everyone to hear. She introduces Issei as her new disciple, announcing that he will study the art of demon hunting under her guidance. From this day forward, he is to be treated as one of their own. The crowd doesn't question her for even a second. If the head brought him here, then that's all the explanation they need. Rather than rejecting him, the Dokebi warmly welcome Issei as a new member of their family. Watching everyone accept him so effortlessly, Issei is left stunned. Back in the human village, people feared him simply because of his eyes. Here, a single word from Mongrion is enough for complete strangers to embrace him without hesitation. At that moment, he realizes just how respected and extraordinary his master truly is. Seeing that Issei has officially been welcomed into Guisu Temple, Mongrion smiles with satisfaction. His introduction is over. Now it's time for something far more important. She tells him they're about to begin the very foundation of becoming a true demon hunter. Issei has found a new home, but his real training is only just beginning. Instead of throwing Issei into brutal training, Mongrion leads him to a table overflowing with food and even orders the cooks to bring out more, especially meat. Completely confused, Issei asks what any of this has to do with hunting demons. Rather than answering immediately, Mongrion lightly taps him on the head. He's forgotten something important. He's still just a child. Before learning how to kill demons, he needs to grow. Children are supposed to eat well, sleep well, and build strong bodies while they're still developing. If he neglects that now, he'll pay the price for it once he becomes a demon hunter. Issei quickly understands what she's trying to teach him. Strength doesn't begin with a weapon, it begins with the body. Without another complaint, he grabs the meat and rice, determined to eat everything if it will help him become strong enough to fulfill his vow. Watching him immediately grasp the lesson, Mongrion can't help but smile. Just as the meal continues, the dining hall doors burst open. A cheerful young Dokaibi girl rushes in carrying another plate piled high with meat. Her name is Gong-ah. After thanking her, Mongrion announces she has other duties to attend to. Before leaving, she asks Gong-ah to prepare a room for Issei once he's finished eating and makes one final request. Make absolutely sure he finishes every last bite. Gong-ah enthusiastically salutes the order, leaving Issei internally wondering if this is the hellish training Mongrion warned him about. Somehow, it isn't quite what he expected. The moment Mongrion leaves, Gong-ah eagerly walks over to inspect the temple's newest resident. She's fascinated by the fact that humans don't have horns, and immediately starts asking Issei questions. When he quietly reveals that he's only 10 years old, Gong-ah is completely stunned. He's younger than she expected, yet somehow acts far more mature than she does. Then she proudly announces that she's 22. Issei can't hide his surprise. That revelation is somehow even more shocking. The cook quickly clears up the misunderstanding, explaining that Dokaibi age much more slowly than humans. Although Gong-ah is 22 by Dokaibi standards, she's effectively only about a year older than Issei in terms of maturity. The explanation is all Gong-ah needs. She immediately declares herself Issei's big sister. The cook chuckles, teasing her that she must be thrilled to finally have a new youngest sibling. For the first time since losing his family, Issei finds himself surrounded by warmth instead of fear. Without even realizing it, he's already becoming part of a new family. Before Issei and Gong-ah leave, the temple's cook gently reminds her to take good care of the newest member of their family. Gong-ah beams with excitement, happily declaring that she'll look after her new little brother. Watching their exchange, Issei falls silent. No one had ever spoken about him with such warmth before. For someone who had spent his life being treated like an outcast, the feeling is almost unbelievable. As Gong-ah shows him around Guisu Temple, Issei struggles to keep up after the enormous meal, clutching his stomach while she laughs that he'll digest it soon enough. She then casually points out just how fortunate he is. Being personally trained by the head is an honor most Dokaibi could only dream of. Plenty of them would be jealous of the opportunity he's been given. Curious, Issei asks if Mongrion is really that extraordinary. Gong-ah can hardly believe he doesn't already know. To her, Mongrion isn't just powerful, she's a legend. For more than 300 years, she's hunted demons without stopping, becoming so strong that she's likely more powerful than everyone else in Guisu Temple combined. The revelation leaves Issei speechless. 300 years. The difference between humans and Dokaibi is greater than he ever imagined. As they continue walking, Issei quietly observes the people around him. Despite their horns and long lifespans, Mongrion and Gongwon don't feel like monsters at all. If anything, they feel far more human than the villagers who cast him aside. Lost in thought, Issei barely notices Gongwon, calling out to him, making him promise that when he grows into a famous demon hunter, he won't forget about his big sister. Her cheerful voice pulls a faint reaction from him. For the first time in his life, Issei is surrounded by people who accept him without fear, suspicion, or prejudice. It's a warmth that never existed in his old village, and somehow, it feels strangely comforting. Just as Issei begins settling into his new life, a loud voice suddenly echoes through the streets, bringing everything to a halt. A group of young Dokaibi blocks his path. They're far from happy to see a human walking freely through Guisu Temple. To them, it was already outrageous that Issei had been allowed into Dokaibi territory. But learning that the head herself had chosen him as her direct disciple pushes them over the edge. One of them cracks his knuckles, clearly looking for a fight, and suggests they have a little talk. The tension rises instantly. Gong-a immediately recognizes the troublemakers, calling out the names of Ilchui, Woljang, and Gogol's gang before they can get any closer. As the group closes in, Issei quietly studies their expressions. Jealousy, hostility, resentment. It's a look he knows all too well. After everything that's happened, he can't help but think to himself, so this is the side of the world I'm familiar with. Even in a place that welcomed him with open arms, not everyone is willing to accept his presence. Some things, it seems, never change. As the sun begins to set, Gong-a struggles against the Dokaibi, holding her back, desperately demanding that they stop. Across the training grounds, Issei is barely able to remain on his feet after taking blow after blow. Gong-a angrily warns them that Mongrayon won't overlook this. The leader of the group simply shrugs. What's the problem? Sparring is a perfectly normal part of life at Guisu Temple. According to him, they're only teaching Issei the difference in strength so he doesn't foolishly rush toward demons before he's ready. In fact, he claims Issei is so weak that calling this a spar would be giving him too much credit. On the surface, his words sound reasonable, but his true feelings tell a different story. Deep down, the young Dokaibi isn't fighting to teach Issei. He's fighting because he's jealous. Ever since the head personally brought a human into Guisu Temple, he's been convinced Issei must possess some extraordinary talent. Instead, all he sees is a weak child who can barely defend himself. So why did Mongrayon choose him instead of one of her own people? That question has been eating away at him from the very beginning. Bruised and struggling to breathe, Issei quietly apologizes. He says he misunderstood the situation. He thought he was simply being bullied. Since he's the outsider in Dokaibi territory, he believed the only thing he could do was endure whatever happened to him without complaining. Instead of realizing it was supposed to be training, he feels guilty for interrupting everyone else's practice. His honest confession catches the entire group completely off guard. The young Dokaibi freezes. For a moment, no one says a word. Issei wasn't angry. He wasn't looking for sympathy. After everything he'd experienced in his old village, he'd simply assumed this was normal, and that realization hits far harder than any punch ever could. Frustrated by Issei's response, the young Dokaibi explodes in anger and rushes him again, unleashing a relentless barrage of punches. He mocks Issei for being nothing more than a weak human, claiming he had been holding back because the boy looked too fragile to survive a real fight. And yet, somehow, Issei still had the nerve to speak as if he understood anything. The punches keep coming. Issei doesn't block. He doesn't run. He simply endures every blow. But the longer the beating continues, the stranger it feels. The Dokaibi suddenly realizes something is wrong. He's completely dominating the fight. He should feel satisfied. Instead, he feels nothing. What unsettles him even more is Issei's expression. Most people instinctively shut their eyes when a punch is about to land. Issei never does. He stares straight at every attack without flinching, carefully watching each movement as if he isn't focused on surviving, but on learning. That unwavering gaze begins to shake the confidence of his opponent. Growing even more irritated, the Dokaibi throws another punch with full force, convinced this one will finally put Issei down. At the last possible moment, Issei moves. For the first time since the fight began, he cleanly slips past the attack. The moment Issei dodges the attack, everyone watching freezes. Gong-a and the other two Dokaibi, who had been holding her back, can only stare in disbelief. Issei immediately takes advantage of the opening, driving forward with a perfectly straight punch. For the first time, Ilchui's confidence disappears. His eyes widen as he watches the punch race toward his face. At the very last second, Issei stops. His fist halts just inches away without making contact. Even though he was never hit, Ilchui instinctively stumbles backward and collapses to the ground, overwhelmed by the pressure of the strike. Looking at his own outstretched fist, Issei quietly realizes something. His punch didn't reach because his body wasn't strong enough. Mongrayon was right. If he doesn't eat properly and build his strength now, he'll regret it later. Instead of mocking his opponent or celebrating, Issei calmly calls him by name, Ilchui. Then he makes an unexpected request. Even if he looks weak, he doesn't want anyone holding back against him. Because when he faces a real demon, it certainly won't. Issei extends a hand toward the stunned Ilchui, offering to help him back up. There isn't a trace of arrogance or hostility in his expression, only quiet determination. With the same calm, emotionless eyes that once frightened an entire village, he makes a simple request. Let's spar again sometime. Not to settle a score, not to prove who's stronger, but to become stronger together. For the first time, Ilchui begins to understand that the human standing before him isn't someone chasing pride or recognition. He's a boy willing to endure any hardship if it brings him one step closer to exterminating every demon. When Mongrian finally sees Yisei again, she's greeted by a face covered in bruises. She immediately realizes something happened on his very first day. After hearing Gong-A's version of events, she asks if Ilchui and his friends were bullying him. Yisei calmly shakes his head. To him, it was simply sparring. Mongrian isn't convinced for a second. Those injuries are far beyond what a normal spar should leave behind. Without wasting another moment, she pulls him over and begins healing his wounds with the same magic that saved him after the fire. Watching his injuries disappear, Yisei realizes she's using the very spell that healed his burns. As the healing continues, Mongrian explains that children naturally grow stronger by fighting each other. But there's a line. If anyone ever crosses it again, she wants Yisei to come to her immediately. Curious, she asks whether he managed to land a single hit on Ilchui. Yisei quietly admits that he didn't. Then he adds something that makes Mongrian pause. He didn't want to cause trouble while living under her care. Those words instantly change her expression. Still holding him in place while healing his injuries, Mongrian asks if he remembers how she introduced him to everyone at Guisu Temple. Yisei nods. She called him family. Exactly. So she tells him to stop acting like someone surviving on charity. Yisei quickly clarifies one thing. He wasn't holding back because he felt indebted to the temple. The truth is much simpler. Ilchui fought with everything he had, and despite Yisei's best efforts, not a single one of his attacks connected. Mongrian isn't surprised in the slightest. Ilchui is already skilled enough to spar against fully grown adults. Yisei is surprised to learn that Ilchui is already skilled enough to spar with adults. If that's the case, could someone like Ilchui already hunt demons? Mongrian immediately gives him a harsh reality check. No. If Ilchui went on a real demon hunt today, he would most likely die. The answer confuses Yisei. After all, he managed to kill a Wadu scholar despite being weaker than Ilchui. So how could someone stronger still be unfit to face demons? That's when Mongrian explains the true foundation of demon hunting. Mongrian reminds Yisei how he defeated the Wadu scholar. It wasn't because he was stronger. It was because he learned its weakness and used salt to create a battle he could actually win. That's the essence of demon exercising arts. A demon hunter doesn't rely on strength alone. They rely on knowledge. Knowing a demon's habits, weaknesses, and how to force the fight into their favor is often more important than raw power. But knowledge alone isn't enough either. Ilchui possesses impressive martial skill, yet lacks the knowledge needed to survive against powerful demons. Yisei has the opposite problem. He understands how to exploit a demon's weakness, but his body is still far too weak to reliably execute those plans. Either flaw is enough to get a hunter killed. Only those who possess both knowledge and martial prowess can truly walk the path of a demon hunter. With the lesson over, Mongrian gives Yisei his very first task. Not a mission, not a battle, a foundation. The following days become a relentless cycle of training. Yisei sprints through the village until his legs can barely carry him. He pushes his body with endless exercises, building the strength he never had. When his muscles can do no more, he heads to the library, burying himself in books about martial arts, tactics, and demon lore. Every day becomes a balance between sharpening his body and sharpening his mind. From a distance, Gong-A watches the routine unfold. At first, she can only sigh in boredom, wondering how anyone could spend every waking moment training. After an entire week, Gong-A finally can't hold back her curiosity. Every single day, Yisei follows the exact same routine, training his body, studying until late, then doing it all over again. Doesn't he ever get bored? She even offers to take a break and play with him like a proper big sister. Yisei politely declines. His schedule is already packed from morning until night. If he wants Mongrian to recognize him as a true demon hunter, he has to complete every task she's assigned. When Gong-A asks what those tasks are, Yisei answers so casually that she almost doesn't believe him. To prove he has the necessary knowledge, Mongrian ordered him to read every single book in the temple's library. Gong-A is horrified. The library contains enough books to keep someone occupied for decades. If someone gave her that assignment, she'd rather give up on the spot. Yisei, however, simply shrugs. He likes reading, so, to him, it's not much of a burden. His calm response leaves Gong-A completely speechless. Then Gong-A notices something else. If Yisei's physical training only consists of running and exercise, why is he covered in bruises every day? Yisei explains that building martial prowess requires something much more painful. He has to win a sparring match. Only then will Mongrian acknowledge his combat ability. The scene shifts to the sparring grounds. Once again, Yisei lies battered on the ground after another defeat. Standing over him is Iltui, looking more exhausted than victorious. Issei has challenged him day after day without fail, refusing to stop no matter how many times he's knocked down. Iltui finally loses his patience. At this point, he can't even bring himself to hit Issei any harder. He's starting to feel like he's beating up someone who refuses to quit. Issei calmly reminds him that he shouldn't even be talking about killing him. This is supposed to be a spar. Iltui immediately snaps back. Who said I wanted to spar with you? At this point, Issei's determination has become more troublesome than any opponent Iltui has ever faced. Watching from afar, Gong-ah finally understands why Issei returns every day covered in bruises. Mongrion's assignment isn't just difficult, it's absurd. She actually expects Issei to defeat Iltui. To Gong-ah, the challenge seems completely impossible. A human simply can't overpower a Dokaibi through brute strength alone. At least, that's what everyone believes. Back at the sparring grounds, Issei calmly questions Iltui. Isn't sparring meant to prepare people for real combat? A real demon won't politely leave just because someone doesn't feel like fighting. His words only irritate Iltui further. With a single step, the ground beneath his foot cracks from the force of his strength. He warns Issei not to mistake his restraint for weakness. If the human keeps coming back, next time he won't stop until every bone in Issei's body is broken. The threat isn't an exaggeration, it's a promise. Before the confrontation can escalate any further, Gong-ah rushes between them, telling Iltui to stop trying to intimidate Issei. Iltui clicks his tongue in annoyance. Now, from his perspective, it looks like Issei is hiding behind Gong-ah's protection. He can't understand why she keeps defending someone like him. Issei, however, remains completely unfazed. He quietly tells Iltui that even if every bone in his body ends up broken, he won't hold it against him. Then he repeats the same request as always. Let's spar again. Iltui stares at him in disbelief. At this point, there's only one conclusion he can reach. This human is completely insane, and that's exactly what makes him impossible to ignore. Days turn into weeks, yet nothing changes. No matter where Iltui goes, one familiar voice always finds him. Iltui, let's spar. At first, he thinks Issei will eventually give up, but the human keeps coming back, every single day. Iltui can't understand it. Issei ignores every warning, never complains about the beatings, and hasn't landed a single clean hit since they started. So why won't he quit? In Iltui's mind, the answer should be obvious. Humans can't surpass Dokaibi. Issei doesn't have the talent. He should have accepted reality long ago. Yet one thing continues to bother him. Whenever Issei looks at him, it doesn't feel like he's staring at an unbeatable opponent. It feels as though he's looking through him, as if Iltui is merely another obstacle on the road towards something much greater. That unwavering gaze slowly begins to get under Iltui's skin. Without realizing it, Issei's determination starts changing Iltui as well. Refusing to be left behind, Iltui throws himself into even harsher training. He tells himself there's no way he'll sit around while a mere human keeps improving. He refuses to lose the head's recognition. He refuses to lose Gong-ah's admiration. And most of all, he refuses to let Issei surpass him. Again and again, he reminds himself that their talents aren't even comparable. No matter how hard Issei trains, his fist will never reach him. At least, that's what Iltui desperately wants to believe. A full year passes. The sparring grounds look very different now. This time, it's Iltui, lying on the ground. Around them, Gong-ah and the other young Dokaibi stare in complete disbelief. The impossible has happened. Still dazed, Iltui slowly raises a hand to his face, feeling the spot where Issei's punch connected. For an entire year, he insisted it would never happen. But reality says otherwise. Standing calmly over his defeated rival, Issei quietly delivers a single sentence. It reached. The punch wasn't just a strike. It was proof that relentless effort had finally overcome what everyone believed was impossible. Unable to accept his defeat, Iltui immediately jumps back to his feet, insisting it was nothing more than a mistake. He claims he only lost his footing. Then, consumed by frustration, he charges at Issei with everything he has, determined to prove the first hit was just luck. This time, nothing lands. Issei effortlessly slips past every punch, avoiding each attack with calm, calculated movements. Watching his opponent weave through every strike, Iltui is stunned. He didn't spend the last year sitting still. He trained just as hard. So how could Issei's single year of growth surpass his own? As he continues dodging, Issei finally understands the lesson Mongrion had been trying to teach him all along. True demon hunting isn't about overwhelming strength. It's about combining knowledge and martial prowess. Most demons possess bodies far stronger than any human could ever hope to match. No amount of physical training alone can erase that gap. That's where knowledge comes in. By studying an opponent's habits, attack patterns, weaknesses, and vital points, a hunter can create opportunities that shouldn't exist. That's exactly what happened here. Over the past year, Issei memorized every movement in Ilchui's fighting style. What once looked impossibly fast now felt completely predictable. But knowledge alone still isn't enough. Even if you know exactly where to strike, it means nothing if your body can't reach the target. That's why martial prowess is equally essential. Only when both become second nature can a human hope to stand against creatures far stronger than themselves. For the first time, Issei truly grasps the essence of demon exercising arts. From the sidelines, Gong-a watches the battle end in complete disbelief. Just 1 year ago, Issei couldn't touch Ilchui even once. Now, he hasn't merely won, he's dominated the fight. The human everyone doubted has defeated one of Guisu Temple's most talented young Dokaibi so thoroughly that the outcome leaves everyone speechless. As Ilchui collapses unconscious onto the ground, Issei walks over without a trace of triumph or arrogance. Instead, he kneels beside his rival with genuine concern. Ilchui, are you okay? After everything they've been through, Issei still isn't interested in proving he's better. To him, Ilchui was never an enemy. As they stroll through Guisu Temple, Gong-a can't stop talking about what she witnessed at the sparring grounds. She excitedly praises Issei for defeating Ilchui after only a year of training. Issei, however, can't help teasing her. He's more impressed by the fact that she still has enough energy to keep talking without taking a single breath. The lighthearted exchange shows just how comfortable the two have become around each other. Their conversation comes to a halt when Issei spots Mongrian preparing to leave alongside several demon hunters. Curious, he asks where she's going. Mongrian realizes she's never actually explained it before. Every year, she travels into the human world to carry out demon hunts. It's more than just exterminating monsters. It's how the Dokaibi maintain their alliance with humanity. By protecting villages from demons, they prove that Dokaibi are allies, not enemies. Then she reminds Issei of something that suddenly makes perfect sense. The reason she found him in that cursed village was because she had been carrying out one of those annual missions. Issei finally understands why fate brought the two of them together. Before leaving, Mongrian asks Issei how he's progressing with the assignment she gave him. Gongo immediately lights up, eager to reveal what happened. But before she can say a word, someone else beats her to it. Ilchui casually walks over, draping an arm around Issei's shoulders as though they've been friends for years. Then, without hesitation, he announces the truth. Issei defeated him in a sparring match. Mongrian raises an eyebrow, pleasantly surprised. Only 1 year, and Issei already managed to beat Ilchui. Instead of making excuses or blaming bad luck, Ilchui openly acknowledges Issei's strength. He admits that Issei is genuinely impressive and vows to train even harder so he won't lose the next time they fight. For Issei though, one detail matters more than the praise itself. Ilchui called him by his name, not human, not outsider, just Issei. Without realizing it, their rivalry has turned into mutual respect. Meanwhile, Gong-a narrows her eyes at the sudden display of friendship. Something about Ilchui's abrupt change in attitude feels very suspicious. Seeing Ilchui openly praise Issei, Mongrian can't help but laugh. She gives Ilchui a playful tap on the head, admitting she'd been worried the two would never get along. But now, seeing him finally acknowledge Issei as his younger brother, she says he's truly grown. The compliment instantly goes to Ilchui's head. Trying to act tough, he can't hide the proud smile spreading across his blushing face. Watching from the side, Gong-a immediately figures out what happened. So that was his real goal all along, he just wanted the head's approval. Satisfied, Mongrian leaves the group, reminding them to continue getting along while she's away. As soon as Mongrian leaves, Gogol walks over to Issei with a warm smile. He's genuinely happy that Issei and Ilchui have finally become friends. Ilchui, however, is caught completely off guard. Since when were the two of them so close? Gogol casually reveals that they've actually been friends for more than half a year. The only reason he never showed it was because Ilchui hated Issei, so he avoided making things awkward. Now that Ilchui has accepted him, there's no reason to keep pretending. Hearing that, Ilchui clicks his tongue and jokingly complains that Issei somehow managed to win over even innocent little Gogol. Without realizing it, Issei has slowly earned the trust of everyone around him. Deciding there's no point dwelling on it, Ilchui invites Issei to come hang out with the others. Not as a rival, not as an outsider, just as one of the boys. The moment Gong-a hears about their plans, she excitedly insists on coming too. Ilchui immediately refuses. Today's outing is for brothers only. Naturally, Gong-a demands to know who made such a ridiculous rule. Ilchui smugly replies that he did, simply because he felt like it. A second later, punch. Gong-a's fist crashes straight into his face. Then I'm punching you because I feel like it. The two instantly dissolve into their usual childish bickering, turning the peaceful moment into complete chaos. Meanwhile, Issei stands quietly in the middle of it all. His cheeks slowly turn bright red, not because of the argument, but because of one single word. Brother. For someone who once believed he'd lost his family forever, hearing himself included in one again means more than he can put into words. Later, the group heads to the temple's armory. Surrounded by countless weapons, Issei hesitantly asks Ilchui whether they're really allowed to enter whenever they want. Ilchui doesn't even look back. Instead, he casually tells him to stop standing around and hurry up, then calls him human again. Issei pauses for a moment. He's back to calling him human. For a split second, he wonders if anything really changed. But after everything that's happened, it's clear Ilchui no longer says it with contempt. It's simply the teasing nickname of an older brother who's finally accepted him as one of his own. While browsing the armory, Ilchui suddenly throws out a bold challenge. This time, they won't settle things with another spar. They'll settle it with a real demon hunt. The rules are simple. Leave Guisu Temple, find a demon, and whoever kills one first wins. Issei immediately objects. Mongrian gave strict orders that none of them were to leave Guisu Temple until they came of age. Even putting that aside, simply wandering outside doesn't guarantee they'll encounter a demon. But Gurgle speaks up with information he'd overheard from the adults returning from patrol. They reportedly heard the cries of a newborn baby nearby. That likely means a child ghost, a weak demon known to occasionally wander close to the temple. Issei's expression hardens. He quickly shuts the idea down. They can't jump to conclusions based on a single sound. More than 10 different types of demons can imitate a crying infant, and some of those creatures are powerful enough to wipe them out without effort. Without confirming exactly what they're dealing with, hunting it would be reckless. This is exactly why Mongrian drilled knowledge into him before allowing him to fight. A demon hunter who makes assumptions becomes a dead demon hunter. Ilchui scoffs at Issei's warning. To him, it just sounds like someone who's read too many books and forgotten how to act. Then he asks one final time, "Is Issei coming, or not?" Issei doesn't hesitate. He refuses. Not because he's afraid, but because he won't disobey Mongrian's orders. Ilchui rolls his eyes. In his mind, Issei is just hiding behind the head's authority because he's too scared to leave the temple. With a dismissive snort, Ilchui decides he's done arguing. If the coward won't come, then he'll simply hunt the demon without him. Calling for the others, Ilchui leads the group toward the temple gates, while Issei can only watch them leave, fully aware that they're walking straight into a situation his knowledge tells him could end in disaster. As Ilchui storms out of the armory with the others, he can't resist throwing one last jab at Issei. For someone who claimed he came to Guisu Temple to hunt demons, he sure acts pathetic. Issei doesn't argue, he simply watches them leave in silence. Outside, Ilchui's excitement only grows stronger. With a heavy spiked iron club resting on his shoulder, he declares that his demon hunter blood is boiling. Right now, he feels like he could crush hundreds of child ghosts with his own hands. The others eagerly agree. They've always dreamed of hunting a real demon before becoming adults. To them, this isn't just an adventure. It's the trial that will prove they're worthy of becoming true demon hunters. The entire group is swept up in the excitement, convinced that victory is waiting just beyond the temple walls. Just as Ilchui is enjoying the moment, he glances back and freezes. Standing quietly behind Gurgle is Issei. Despite refusing earlier, he's come after all. Ilchui immediately bursts into laughter when he notices Issei's weapon, a simple hand axe. He mocks him, joking that they're going to hunt demons, not chop firewood. In Ilchui's mind, Issei must be terrified. This is supposed to be the human's first real encounter with a demon, and he imagines he's only tagging along because he doesn't want to look like a coward. Meanwhile, Ilchui's confidence only swells. He reminds himself that he's different. Even as a child, he'd seen and touched the corpse of a real demon. This hunt will be his chance to erase the humiliation of losing their sparring match. He's convinced that once they face a real demon, everyone will finally see the difference between his skills and Issei's. What Ilchui doesn't realize is that Issei didn't come to compete. He came because his instincts are warning him that this hunt is far more dangerous than any of them realize. As the group ventures farther from Guisu Temple, Issei can't shake the uneasy feeling in his chest. He never wanted to come. But once he realized he couldn't stop Ilchui and the others from leaving, the only choice left was to follow them. If something went wrong, at least he'd be there. While the others confidently search for their prey, Issei runs through everything he remembers from the books. If the reports are accurate, they're dealing with a child ghost. A demon that takes the form of a helpless child and usually torments people by making unreasonable demands rather than fighting head-on. Against a creature like that, Ilchui should have little trouble winning. But Issei can't ignore the possibility that's been bothering him from the start. What if it isn't a child ghost? That single thought refuses to leave his mind. The sound of a crying child echoes through the area. At first, everything matches the stories. A lonely child sits ahead, weeping softly. Then, the illusion falls apart. As the view widens, the horrifying truth is revealed. The crying child isn't alone. It's fused to an enormous, nightmarish beast. A monstrous horse-like demon towers over the landscape, its back lined with the skulls of countless children. Where ordinary eyes should be, two massive human-like hands twist and twitch grotesquely, while jagged horns crown its head like a twisted halo. The sheer sight of the creature is enough to freeze the air itself. In that instant, Issei realizes his greatest fear has come true. This was never a harmless child ghost. They've walked straight into the territory of something far more terrifying. The group continues searching the forest, but the demon they're looking for refuses to appear. Ilchui grows increasingly irritated. The patrols clearly reported hearing a baby crying somewhere around here, so where is this so-called child ghost? Sensing the tension, Issei calmly suggests they head back. There's still no sign of a child ghost, and continuing to wander deeper into the forest feels far too dangerous. Ilchui immediately takes the suggestion the wrong way. To him, it sounds like Issei is looking down on him after winning a single sparring match. His pride flares up once again, forcing Gurgle and the others to grab him before he starts another fight. Instead of arguing, Issei quietly shakes his head. He never believed he was stronger than Ilchui. The victory only happened because Ilchui underestimated him. If Ilchui had known what to expect, the outcome could have been completely different. Issei speaks without a hint of flattery. After sparring with Ilchui every single day for an entire year, no one understands his abilities better than he does. His physical strength, his speed, his martial skill, they're all incredible. Hearing such sincere praise completely catches Ilchui off guard. His face slowly turns red as his pride melts into embarrassment. Trying to hide how happy he is, he coughs awkwardly before declaring that maybe Issei has earned the right to join their sworn brotherhood. Issei blinks in surprise. Does that mean Ilchui would become his big brother? Ilchui immediately acts tough, asking if there's a problem with that. But Issei's answer is immediate. No, I'm happy. A gentle smile spreads across his face as he quietly admits something he's kept buried for a long time. He's always wished he had an older brother. For a moment, Ilchui is completely speechless. That smile, it isn't fake. It's the smile of a child who lost his family and never expected to belong to one again. Without realizing it, Ilchui's heart softens. The touching moment is shattered by a chilling sound. A baby's cry echoes through the forest. Ilchui's eyes light up. Convinced they've finally found the child ghost, he charges ahead without a second thought, shouting that whoever catches it first gets to keep it. Gogol and the others immediately chase after him. Inside, Ilchui is already imagining himself returning as the hero of the group. This is his chance to show his new younger brother just how cool he really is. But the moment he reaches the source of the crying, his body locks in place. Standing before him is a child with hollow, lifeless eyes and a mouth stretched unnaturally wide open. Every instinct in his body screams at him. Something is terribly wrong. Woljang finally catches up, exhausted from chasing after Ilchui. Still frozen in place, Ilchui asks a strange question. A child ghost. It's supposed to look like a baby, right? Woljang nods, confused. Yeah, at least that's what they've always been told. For a brief moment, everything seems normal. Then the child's unnaturally wide mouth slowly closes. Silence. And suddenly, a twisted grin spreads across its face. Its eyes glow a deep crimson as it begins laughing. From the darkness around it, more smiling faces emerge, each wearing the exact same horrifying expression. Only then does Ilchui notice the impossible. Why does it have more than one head? The instant Issei sees the creature, his blood runs cold. His worst fear has become reality. He screams at everyone to run. That thing isn't a child ghost. It's something far more dangerous. But before he can even reveal its true identity, the monster attacks. Without warning, countless razor-sharp horns burst from every opening in the grotesque faces. The mouths, the eyes, every hollow cavity becoming a deadly weapon. The barrage explodes toward the children with terrifying speed. Issei barely manages to react in time, throwing up the shield he brought just in case. The impact slams him into the ground, but the shield saves his life. Ilchui and Woljang avoid some of the attacks, but not all of them. Sharp horns tear into their bodies, leaving both of them screaming in agony. Then Issei looks toward Gogol, and his heart sinks. Gogol never moved. Frozen by fear, he couldn't react at all. Two massive horns have pierced straight to his stomach, leaving him collapsed motionless on the forest. The four children lie scattered across the ground. Moments ago, they were arguing over who would claim their first demon. Now, they're staring at the horrifying reality of what a real demon truly is. Towering over them, the grotesque creature begins laughing. Then another face laughs. Then another. Soon, the entire monster erupts into hysterical, overlapping laughter that echoes through the forest. Every boast, every dream of becoming heroes, every ounce of confidence they carried out of Guisu Temple is crushed in an instant. This is the difference between training and facing a real demon. The story pauses to reveal a harsh truth about demon hunting. A demon's danger isn't measured by how difficult it is to kill. It's measured by one thing: the hunter's chance of surviving. Demons are ranked across 9 risk levels. Levels 9 through 7 are considered low-grade demons. Even then, survival isn't guaranteed. Rookie hunters only have around a 90% chance against the level 9, 80% against the level 8, and 70% against the level 7. But once a demon reaches risk level 6, everything changes. Level 6 marks the beginning of the mid-grade demons. Against one of those, a rookie hunter's survival rate plummets to a mere 2 only 20%. And that's for official demon hunters. The monster standing before the children is finally identified. Risk level 6. A mid-grade demon, the Wailing Dragon Demon. The realization sends a chill through Issei. His worst prediction wasn't just correct, it was even worse than he imagined. Issei's mind races. This isn't a child ghost, it's a Wailing Dragon Demon. Even experienced rookie hunters only have a slim chance of surviving against something like this. But they aren't even official hunters yet. They're children, they're injured, and they're trapped. At this rate, every single one of them is going to die. Instead of panicking, Issei forces himself to think. If they can't win, then he has to figure out the one decision that gives them even the slightest chance of surviving. Nearby, Ilchui can barely think through the pain. Every wound burns. His stomach churns. The horrifying appearance of the demon is far worse than anything he'd ever imagined while reading stories or boasting to his friends. Then reality crashes into him. This happened because he insisted on coming, because he challenged everyone to a demon hunt, because he refused to listen. The guilt is almost worse than the pain. His eyes suddenly fall on Gogol. The younger Dokebi is bleeding heavily, the horn still lodged through his stomach. Panic instantly replaces Ilchui's pride. If they don't treat Gogol immediately, his little brother isn't going to survive. For the first time since leaving Guisu Temple, Ilchui understands the true cost of his reckless confidence. Pain and panic consume Ilchui's thoughts. What are they supposed to do now? If they stay, everyone dies. If they run, can they even escape a demon like this? And even if they could, how are they supposed to carry a critically wounded Gurgol all the way back to Guisu Temple? Desperately searching for an answer, Ilchui reaches a conclusion. Then Yisi speaks first. His voice cuts through the forest like a blade. Leave Gurgol behind and run. Ilchui slowly turns toward him, unable to believe what he just heard. Yisei? What did you just say? Yisei doesn't look away. He states the brutal truth without emotion. Gogol's wound is fatal. Even if they somehow escaped, he would bleed to death long before they reached the temple. The words hit everyone like another attack. Woljang immediately lashes out in disbelief. Abandon Gogol? How could Yisei even suggest something so cruel? For a moment, the human they had come to trust sounds colder than the demon standing before them. Yisei remains calm. Then he asks a question that stops everyone in their tracks. If the Wailing Dragon Demon could have killed them already, why hasn't it attacked again? The answer comes from something he read in the Demon Encyclopedia. Wailing Dragon Demons don't simply enjoy killing. They savor prey consumed by negative emotions. Fear, despair, guilt, hopelessness. Those emotions make their victims far more satisfying to devour. Issei slowly realizes what's happening. The demon isn't hesitating. It's waiting to watch them make an impossible choice. Will they abandon their dying friend to save themselves, or will they cling to each other and all die together? The monster isn't just hunting their bodies. It's feasting on the despair building inside their hearts. Issei forces himself to say the words no one wants to hear. The Wailing Dragon Demon wants them to abandon Gogahol. If they do, Gogahol will fall into despair, while the rest of them will be consumed by guilt. Those emotions are exactly what the monster has been waiting for. Issei understands that. He knows they're playing straight into the demon's hands. But even so, he reaches the same painful conclusion. It's the only choice that gives anyone else a chance to survive. The words weigh heavier than any weapon. Gogol clutches his stomach, tears streaming down his face. The pain is unbearable. His voice trembles as he asks the question no child should ever have to ask. I'm not going to die, right, brother? No one can answer him. The silence says everything. At that moment, the Wailing Dragon Demon begins moving toward them. Issei reacts instantly. He hurls a small item toward the creature. A blinding flash erupts, flooding the forest with brilliant light and momentarily stopping the demon in its tracks. Without wasting even a second, Issei kneels beside Gogol. Leaning close enough that only he can hear, Issei whispers an apology. I'm sorry, Gogol. Then he makes a quiet promise. I swear, I'll kill that demon. As the light slowly fades, only one child remains, Gogol. The others are gone. He quietly realizes what happened. So, everyone ran away. For a brief moment, sadness crosses his face. Then, he smiles. It's a weak, trembling smile, but a genuine one. It's for the best. I don't want everyone to die because of me. His thoughts drift back to Yisi's promise. Revenge no longer matters to him. All he wants now is for Yisi to survive. All he wants now is for Yisi to survive. In the distance, Ilchui and Woljong run through the forest with tears streaming down their faces. Neither of them looks back. Behind them, the wailing dragon demon slowly lowers the massive hands covering its face. The grotesque horror hidden beneath is finally revealed. The monster has gotten exactly what it wanted. A child abandoned, friends drowning in guilt, and despair so deep it can almost taste it. Hidden in the forest, Issei watches from a distance as the nightmare unfolds. The wailing dragon demon devours Gogol. Then something even more horrifying happens. A new face slowly forms among the countless faces covering the demon's body. It's Gogol. His expression is twisted with grief, his voice echoing through the forest like a curse. He cries out that they were supposed to escape together. He asks how they could leave him behind. And with a haunting promise, he says he'll come to see them soon. Whether it's truly Gogol's soul or merely another cruel trick of the demon, the effect is the same. The monster is weaponizing their guilt. The words strike Issei harder than any physical wound. Without even realizing it, he clenches his fist against the nearby tree. His fingers dig so deeply into the bark that it begins to crack beneath the pressure. He says nothing. He doesn't cry. But inside, the guilt threatens to consume him. He was the one who made the decision, the one who told everyone to run, the one who left Gogol behind. Even knowing it was the only rational choice, watching the demon twist Gogol's final moments into a weapon is almost unbearable. The wailing dragon demon hasn't just claimed a life, it's trying to break the survivors from the inside out. Back at Guisu Temple, the peaceful atmosphere has completely disappeared. The village is thrown into chaos as search parties rush in every direction, shouting instructions and calling out names. Something has gone terribly wrong. The commotion eventually wakes Gong-ah from her sleep. Confused by all the noise outside, she asks Chanmo what's happening. Her expression immediately turns serious. Ilchui, Woljong, Gogol, and Yisi, none of them are anywhere inside Guisu Temple. The children have disappeared. As soon as the adults realized they were missing, the temple's combat Dokaibi sent word to Mongreon and immediately left the temple to search beyond its borders. The moment Gong-ah hears those names, her heart sinks. A memory suddenly flashes through her mind. Ilchui's cheerful voice from earlier that day. "We're going out to play. Come with us." Her eyes widened in horror. No, they didn't just go out to play. They really left Guisu Temple. The very thing they were forbidden from doing. Fear replaces every other emotion. Gong-ah slowly lifts her eyes toward the sky. She knows exactly how dangerous the world outside the temple is. Clasping onto the faintest hope she has left, she quietly whispers a single prayer. "Please, come back safely, all of you." Meanwhile, far beyond the safety of Guisu Temple, the children are already facing a nightmare no rescue party may reach in time. Meanwhile, Issei runs through the forest, replaying everything that happened. Logically, he knows abandoning Gogol was the only decision that gave anyone a chance to survive. If all four had stayed behind, they would have died together. By sacrificing one life, three could live and someday avenge him. It's the same cold logic that helped him survive when his own family was slaughtered. But knowing it was the correct choice doesn't make it hurt any less. Gogol's kindness flashes through his mind, reminding Issei of the friend who accepted him without prejudice. The memory cuts deeper than any wound, and for the first time, Issei admits the truth to himself. He hates this decision. He hates himself for making it. Most of all, he hates that demons exist. Before he can sink further into guilt, a powerful voice echoes through the forest. A veteran combat, Dokaibi, named Guaiqian, finally catches up to him after the frantic search. Furious, he scolds Yisi for causing chaos throughout Guisu Temple and warns that Mongreon won't let this incident slide. Then he asks the question Yisi dreaded. Where are the others? Yisi lowers his head before quietly revealing the truth. They encountered a wailing dragon demon. During the escape, he was separated from Ilchui and Woljong, and Gogol was devoured by the demon. The revelation leaves even the seasoned patrol officer frozen in shock. No one expected the children's reckless adventure to end with a mid-grade demon and the death of one of their own. The moment Guaiqian hears the truth, he immediately demands every detail about the demon's appearance. Issei quickly describes the horrifying creature, a horse-like monster covered in countless human faces. Realizing exactly what they're dealing with, Guixian curses under his breath. Every second wasted could mean another life lost. He orders Issei to return to Guisu Temple while he hunts the demon alone. But something doesn't sit right with Issei. Guixian is the patrol officer responsible for protecting the area around Guisu Temple. If that's true, why doesn't he already know about a wailing dragon demon, a dangerous mid-grade demon? Issei warns him that this isn't an enemy to face carelessly, and suggests waiting for reinforcements instead. Guixian confidently brushes the concern aside, declaring that he's one of the 5 strongest Dokaibi when it comes to raw physical strength. Even so, Issei refuses to leave. He volunteers to guide Guixian back to the exact location where they encountered the monster, reminding him that finding Ilchui and Woljong is more important than anything else. After a brief hesitation, Guixian reluctantly agrees, but with one strict condition. The instant they run into the demon, Issei must run without looking back. After escaping the nightmare, Ilchui tears the horn from his shoulder and finally slows down. Exhausted and bleeding, he asks Woljang if he's still alive. Woljang nods despite the pain, but neither of them can ignore the question weighing on their hearts. Was it really right that they survived, while Gurgle didn't? The thought crushes them both. Instead of accepting reality, Ilchui's guilt twists into anger. He convinces himself that if Issei hadn't insisted on retreating, they could have fought together and saved Gurgle. Woljang quietly tries to remind him of the truth, that without Issei, none of them would have escaped. But Ilchui refuses to hear it. To him, surviving while abandoning his brother is the greatest shame imaginable. Just as the two catch their breath, a childish voice suddenly echoes from behind them. Ilchui freezes. Standing there is what appears to be a harmless child ghost. Relief instantly replaces his fear. Convinced this tiny demon is proof that Issei exaggerated the danger, Ilchui charges forward without hesitation, smashing his weapon straight into its head. As he attacks, his frustration boils over. He blames Issei for clouding everyone's judgment, convincing himself that if they had simply stood and fought earlier, they could have defeated the wailing dragon demon just as easily. What Ilchui doesn't realize is that this innocent-looking baby is appearing at the worst possible moment, and nothing about it feels natural. Still blinded by grief, Ilchui swears that if he ever meets the monster again, he'll crush it with his spiked iron club and avenge Gogowal. Woljang echoes his resolve. Together, they vow to exterminate every demon they encounter. But the forest suddenly falls silent. Before either of them realizes what's happening, the wailing dragon demon appears directly behind Woljang. In an instant, it's over. Ilchui turns at the sound behind him, only to find his friend lying lifeless on the ground. The monster slowly advances, the countless faces on its back stretching into twisted smiles, as if savoring his despair. Grief explodes into rage. Clutching his weapon with both hands, Ilchui screams at the monster, swearing to crush it just as easily as the child ghost he defeated moments earlier. He throws himself forward, convinced revenge is all he has left. But the illusion shatters. As the demon slowly uncovers the monstrous maw hidden beneath its giant hands, Ilchui finally understands the terrifying difference between a harmless low-grade demon and the nightmare standing before him. Every ounce of confidence disappears. He can do nothing but stare, tears filling his eyes as death closes in. Just before the monster's jaws snap shut around him, a powerful kick sends the massive demon flying. Guixian crashes into the battlefield like a thunderbolt, roaring that no demon would ever lay a hand on a child of Guisu Temple. Without hesitation, the veteran charges straight at the wailing dragon demon and orders Issei to get Ilchui to safety. The rescue has arrived, but the real battle is only beginning. Issei rushes to the fallen Ilchui while Guixian throws himself into battle. Relieved to see his uncle, Ilchui can barely believe they've been rescued. Issei quickly checks if he can still stand before assuring him that he's just glad he survived. Meanwhile, Guixian completely overwhelms the wailing dragon demon. Every strike shakes the battlefield as he vows to make the monster suffer for targeting the future of Guisu Temple. Watching from a distance, even Issei is impressed. The veteran Dokaibi is undeniably stronger. For a moment, it genuinely looks like the battle is already won. But while everyone focuses on Guixian's overwhelming strength, Issei notices something far more dangerous. Ilchui breaks down, blaming himself for the deaths of Woljang and Gogol. Issei places a reassuring hand on his shoulder before telling him to leave the forest and escape alone. Ilchui can't understand why. From his perspective, Guixian is dominating the fight. Issei calmly explains that raw strength alone isn't enough to defeat demons. Mongrian taught him that every demon has hidden tricks, and if Guixian isn't prepared for whatever the wailing dragon demon is concealing, he'll need someone who knows its habits. Just as Issei fears, the demon finally reveals its true weapon. The twisted faces of Woljang and Gogol suddenly appear among the countless faces covering its body. With heartbreaking voices, they beg Guixian to stop hurting them. For a split second, the veteran freezes. He instinctively calls out the children's names, unable to ignore what he's seeing. That single moment of hesitation is all the monster needs. The wailing dragon demon lunges forward, driving its massive horns straight through Guixian. Even as blood sprays across the battlefield, Guixian immediately realizes the truth. The children were never there. It was nothing more than the demon's cruel illusion, one perfectly designed to exploit the compassion of those trying to save them. Even after being wounded, Guixian refuses to back down. He swings his spear with everything he has. But at the last second, the face of Woljang appears directly in front of his weapon. The illusion begs him to stop, reminding him of the promise to teach the children staff techniques someday. It pleads for rescue, insisting they're still alive and trapped inside the demon. For a moment, Guixian hesitates. Deep down, he knows it's a lie. He knows those children are already gone. He knows the only way to win is to destroy the demon along with every illusion it creates. Yet his heart refuses to obey. The wailing dragon demon isn't powerful simply because of its strength. It understands something far more terrifying. It knows that emotions cloud judgment, that grief weakens resolve, that compassion can become a weapon. After countless hunts, the monster has mastered the art of breaking its prey from the inside. Every illusion is carefully crafted to make its victims hesitate until they lose the will to fight. Until now, that strategy has never failed. Just as the demon believes victory is certain, an axe suddenly slams into its body. Issei bursts into the fight without a moment's hesitation, completely ignoring the heartbreaking illusions surrounding the monster. To the wailing dragon demon, this boy is something it has never encountered before, an anomaly. While everyone else is shaken by the demon's tricks, Issei's voice cuts through the battlefield. He snaps Guixian back to reality with a single reminder. Snap out of it, this is a demon. For the first time in countless hunts, the wailing dragon demon finds itself facing prey that refuses to play by the rules it has always relied. The story finally reveals what makes the wailing dragon demon so terrifying. This isn't just a monster that kills people. It devours their heads, stealing their memories, and even their voices. It imitates the cries of children to lure unsuspecting victims into its trap. That's exactly how it earned the name Wailing Dragon Demon. But its cruelty goes even further. The demon doesn't simply enjoy killing. It prefers prey drowning in grief, guilt, and hopelessness. Before delivering the final blow, it deliberately pushes its victims into complete despair, believing that broken hearts make for the most satisfying meal. Its intelligence is every bit as dangerous as its monstrous strength. Fortunately, Issei isn't facing this creature blindly. After spending an entire year buried in Guisu Temple's library, he already knows the Wailing Dragon Demon's habits, hunting methods, and psychological tricks. While everyone else is fighting with fear, Issei is fighting with knowledge. And against a demon that weaponizes emotions, that knowledge may become the greatest weapon on the battlefield. The demon immediately changes tactics. This time, Gogol's face turns toward Issei, crying out in fear and accusing him of killing Woljang. It begs him to stop, desperately trying to make everyone believe the children are still alive. But Issei doesn't hesitate for even a second. He charges straight through the emotional trap, swinging his axe directly at Gogol's face. Although the illusion narrowly escapes the blow, the demon is clearly forced onto the defensive. Unlike everyone else, Issei refuses to acknowledge the illusion as anything but another part of the enemy. After checking that Guixian can still fight, Issei apologizes for disobeying his order to retreat. His reason is simple. Without Guixian, this demon hunt ends in failure. Hearing those words, the wounded patrol officer is stunned. Even in the middle of this nightmare, Issei isn't panicking. He's treating the entire situation like a proper demon hunt, exactly as Mongrian taught him. Behind them, Ilchui finally breaks. Unable to accept reality, he desperately clings to the hope that Gurgol and Woljang might still be alive. The faces, the voices, everything looks so real. Issei mercilessly destroys that last illusion. He explains that his friends are already dead. The Wailing Dragon Demon simply uses the severed heads of its victims to copy their memories and voices. Nothing more, nothing less. The monster instantly tries to exploit Ilchui's grief again, making Gurgol call out to his older brother and beg him to save them from Issei. For a split second, Ilchui's heart wavers once more. Before the demon can press its advantage, a dagger whistles through the air. It slams into one of the demon's faces, making the monster scream in pain. Issei calmly watches the result before casually remarking that, once this is over, he should probably train his throwing skills as well. Guixian stares at the weapon in disbelief. He immediately recognizes it as a valuable treasure-grade weapon from Guisu Temple's armory and asks where Issei got it. Issei answers with complete honesty. Before leaving, he grabbed every useful weapon he could carry from the armory. If one of them happened to be a powerful treasure, then that was simply good luck. Even while facing a mid-grade demon, Issei is making use of every resource available. Issei immediately takes charge of the battlefield. He tells Guixian not to waste another second on the demon's illusions. If it tries to imitate Guizhou or Wolzhong again, he'll deal with it himself. Guixian only needs to focus on one thing: killing the demon. Watching the boy speak so calmly, Guixian can't help but think something inside Issei is different, almost as if part of him had been broken long ago. But cold as it sounds, Issei's judgment is absolutely correct. With their lives hanging by a thread, they can't afford to reject any help, even if that help comes from a 10-year-old child. Trusting his words, Guixian charges back into battle, ordering Issei not to do anything reckless, while promising he'll risk his own life to get the children home safely. Behind him, Ilchui grabs Issei's arm, tears streaming down his face. He can't understand how Issei can stay so emotionless. How can he ignore Gogol's cries? How can he accept abandoning his friend? Racked with guilt, Ilchui breaks down completely, confessing that if he had known things would end like this, he would rather have died alongside Gogol. Instead of answering with comforting words, Issei slaps him across the face. The sharp sound cuts through the chaos. Issei tells him to wake up. He knows exactly what losing family feels like. He knows the unbearable guilt of surviving when the people you love didn't. He knows what it's like to wish you had died with them, because he has already lived through that nightmare. Yes, dying together would have been easier. But what would it accomplish? Nothing. If he were forced to make the same decision again, he would choose to survive, every single time. Issei's eyes harden with absolute conviction. He declares that he will survive until the very end, and after surviving, he will hunt down every last demon in existence. The overwhelming hatred pouring from the boy is so intense that even the wailing dragon demon instinctively reacts. For the first time since the battle began, its focus slips. That tiny moment of distraction creates the opening Guixian has been waiting for. His attack lands cleanly. Realizing the monster has finally exposed a weakness, Guixian immediately understands one thing: this is their chance. If they don't finish the wailing dragon demon now, they may never get another opportunity. Seizing the opening, Guixian grabs the dagger Issei had embedded in the demon and drags it deep across its body. The monster lets out a deafening scream. This wasn't an ordinary blade. It was the Meridian Cutting Blade, a treasured artifact capable of disrupting the demonic energy flowing through a demon's body. Any demon struck by it rapidly loses its power, turning even a fearsome monster into a vulnerable target. Knowing exactly what he's holding, Guixian drives the blade even deeper. He roars that the pain is only beginning. The demon desperately fights back with its oldest trick. Guixian's face cries out in agony, begging Uncle to stop hurting him. But this time, Guixian doesn't hesitate. He repeats the truth to himself over and over. Those aren't the children. They're nothing more than the demon's lies. Just when it seems they've finally turned the battle around, Guixian's body suddenly gives out. The wound he'd suffered earlier bursts open, blood pouring from his side as his strength rapidly fades. He tries to stand, he tries to keep fighting, but his body refuses to move. Watching from afar, Ilchui can only whisper his uncle's name in horror. The wailing dragon demon immediately senses the change. Its smile returns. Without wasting the opportunity, the monster crashes down with overwhelming force, slamming Guixian into the ground with enough power to shatter the earth beneath him. The narration reveals the terrifying truth. For the very first time in all of its countless hunts, the wailing dragon demon had actually feared for its own life. That feeling filled the monster with pure rage. It wasn't satisfied with merely killing Guixian anymore. It wanted to erase him completely. Unable to move, Ilchui watches in absolute despair as his uncle's body is brutally torn apart before his eyes. All he can do is stare in disbelief and whisper the name of the man who had come to save them. Guixian is gone. What should have been an effortless hunt ends in disaster for the demon. Instead of claiming an easy victory, it suffers a devastating wound that forces it to think about retreat. But before disappearing to recover, there's one thing it refuses to leave behind: the anomaly that ruined everything. Issei has become a threat that must be erased. The demon lunges toward the helpless Ilchui, determined to finish him off. But just before it can strike, Issei crashes down from above with his axe, using the force of his fall to deliver a crushing blow. He doesn't stop there. Axe swing after axe swing rains down on the monster as he coldly declares that if it's venting its anger on Lord Guixian, then it must already be backed into a corner. Nothing stings a predator more than having its weakness exposed. Desperate to survive, the demon resorts to its cruelest trick. Gogol's face suddenly appears on its body, crying out in pain and begging Issei to stop. It desperately insists that it's the real Gogol, hoping even a moment of hesitation will save its life. It doesn't work. Before the plea can even finish, Issei's axe slices the face clean off without the slightest pause. Realizing one familiar face isn't enough, the demon floods its body with countless others. Innocent voices beg for mercy, claiming to have wives, children, and aging parents waiting for them. Every plea is carefully crafted to shake Issei's resolve. Instead, each new face is answered with another brutal swing. Covered in blood, his empty gaze never wavers as he delivers a chilling response. Beg all they want, it changes nothing. As long as it's a demon, he has no intention of letting it live. The monster keeps searching for the last bit of humanity inside him, but finds none. The relentless assault drives the demon into agony. Its screams echo across the battlefield as it accuses Issei of being heartless, even calling him a murderer. But those desperate words no longer carry any power. Issei continues his execution without hesitation, determined to end the nightmare once and for all. The forest falls eerily quiet, broken only by the dull, metallic sound of something being relentlessly crushed. For a brief moment, everyone watching shares the same stunned thought. They can hardly believe what they're witnessing. Ilchui trembles in disbelief, unable to comprehend how Issei could carry out such a merciless assault. At this point, even the spectators aren't sure who's more terrifying, the hunter or the hunted. As the dust settles, Issei stands motionless over the battlefield, his axe dripping with blood and his entire body stained crimson. Beneath him, the once arrogant demon lies collapsed on the ground, shaking uncontrollably. The creature that had toyed with everyone moments ago can no longer even find the strength to speak. Looking down at the broken monster with an emotionless expression, Issei calmly remarks that he didn't know demons could make faces like that. It's good to know. The cold observation lands harder than any axe swing. To Issei, the demon's fear, pain, and desperate expressions mean nothing. They're simply another thing he's learned before finishing the job. Issei continues bringing his axe down on the demon, each strike making the already brutal scene even harder to watch. Ilchui desperately covers his mouth, trying to hold himself together, but the sight becomes too much. He eventually turns away and vomits. The sound makes Issei stop. He slowly inhales, finally noticing just how badly the boy is shaken. Ilchui struggles to process everything that happened. Woljung, Gogol, and even Uncle Guiqian, they're all gone. The realization hits him all at once, leaving him overwhelmed by grief and fear. Issei turns toward him and calmly asks if he's okay. But the moment Ilchui feels Issei's presence nearby, he instinctively crawls backward, still terrified by what he just witnessed. Issei immediately realizes he's frightened and apologizes, admitting that he startled him by speaking so suddenly. Then, without dwelling on it, Issei tells Ilchui there's something he needs his help with. He asks if the boy can stand. Meanwhile, the demon hunters are desperately searching through the forest. They check one area after another, but there's still no sign of the children. Frustration grows as they realize they may have to widen the search even further. One hunter curses under his breath, wondering where the brats could have disappeared to in the middle of the night. Then the fear of the worst possibility creeps in. What if something happened to them? Suddenly, one of the hunters spots something in the distance. He points toward the trees, shouting that he's found the children. Everyone turns toward the direction he's pointing. Through the darkness, Issei finally emerges. Guiqian is slung over his back while Ilchui follows quietly behind him. The sight immediately catches the hunters off guard. They found the children. But judging by Issei's blood-covered appearance and the unconscious man on his back, it's clear that something went very, very wrong. The missing children eventually make it back to Gwisa Temple, but only 2 of them return. And they bring devastating news. Woljang, Gogol, and Uncle Guiqian were killed by a demon. Gong-ah desperately wishes it isn't true, but Ilchui's devastated expression confirms everything. There is no misunderstanding. The 3 of them are truly gone. Since returning, Ilchui has completely shut himself away in his room. He refuses to speak to anyone, leaving only the sound of his muffled sobbing coming through the door. For Gong-ah, hearing him cry like that is heartbreaking. She wants to help him, but there's nothing she can say that could possibly undo what happened. Meanwhile, Issei has returned alongside Ilchui. Strangely, despite everything that happened in the forest, he goes right back to his usual routine as if the entire incident never happened. Gong-ah watches him and can't help but think that after everything he's been through, he should be resting. But approaching Issei isn't exactly easy. How do you even talk to someone who just came back from a massacre, looking completely unfazed? As Issei runs through the village, keeping up with his usual training routine, he overhears the villagers whispering about what happened. Apparently, Woljang and Gogol's bodies were covered in axe wounds, and according to the rumors, Issei was the one holding the axe. Since Ilchui hasn't spoken a word about the incident, nobody knows what really happened. That silence only makes the villagers more suspicious. Some begin wondering if Issei could have killed the 2 himself. After all, Woljang and Gogol were his friends for an entire year. Yet despite their deaths, Yisei's expression hasn't changed at all. To the villagers, that lack of emotion is unsettling. If he isn't grieving, then what exactly happened in that forest? Back at Guisong Temple, the bodies of Guishong, Woljang, and Guizhou are laid out together. The village head stands over them alongside two demon hunters, struggling to accept what he's seeing. Guishong, Woljang, even Guizhou, all three are dead. The village head can't understand how things went so wrong. A mid-grade Yogui had somehow made it all the way to the temple while she was away. But when she returned, she personally checked the barrier, and there wasn't a single sign of damage or intrusion. So how did the demon get inside? His attention eventually turns toward Yisei. Despite everything Yisei endured, he managed to recover the bodies and bring them safely home. The village head acknowledges that and thanks him for what he did. But there's still one thing he needs to know. He apologizes for asking Yisei to relive such a terrible event, then asks him to explain exactly what happened that day. Yisei quietly accepts. Understood, head. Yisei calmly recounts everything that happened in the forest. The demon suddenly appeared and attacked them by firing its horns. In the chaos, Gurgle was caught by the creature and devoured. Just when things seemed hopeless, Guiqian appeared and threw himself into the fight to protect Ilchui. He managed to save the boy, but the battle cost him his life. With Guiqian gone and the demon still rampaging, Yisei eventually stepped in and finished the creature himself. The demon hunters listen in stunned silence, their eyes widening as Yisei lays out the entire sequence of events. When he's finished, Yisei simply concludes that that's everything. One of the demon hunters can't hold back anymore. If Yisei's story is true, there's something he needs to ask. Yisei had left Gogol behind after he suffered a fatal wound. Then, when the wailing dragon demon had devoured the children, Yisei smashed their heads rather than allowing the demon to continue using them. Those were brutal decisions. But from a practical standpoint, they were probably the right ones. Still, the hunter can't understand how Yisei can describe all of this so calmly. These weren't strangers. They were comrades Yisei had fought alongside and lived with. So how can he talk about their deaths without showing any emotion? Before the argument can escalate, the village head immediately shuts it down. She reprimands the hunter for making a scene in front of their fallen comrades and orders both demon hunters to leave. One tries to protest, but the village head's eyes turn a piercing purple. She repeats the order, leave. The two hunters immediately freeze. They know better than to argue and quietly acknowledge his command before leaving. Once they're gone, the village head turns back to Yisei and apologizes for their behavior. She asks Yisei not to hold it against them. They simply lost control of their emotions after seeing their own comrades die. Yisei, however, doesn't seem bothered. He calmly assures the village head that there's no need to worry about him. The village head points out what has been bothering her. Yisei described the entire incident without showing even a trace of emotion, and she wonders if Yisei ever considered how painful that would be for the others to hear. Yisei hesitates before explaining himself. He believes the three who died must resent him for surviving, and if they're gone, someone should remain behind to carry that resentment in their place. So Yisei has decided to accept all of their anger himself. The village head is stunned by the idea. He questions whether Yisei truly believes carrying that hatred will somehow allow the dead to rest peacefully. To him, the logic is almost unbelievable. Yisei then asks the question that has been weighing on him. Aren't you angry with me, head? The village head realizes Yisei might actually be asking to be punished. He could scold Yisei for taking an artifact from the treasure hall without permission. He could punish him for breaking the rules, leaving Guisid Temple, and ultimately becoming involved in the events that led to the deaths of Guiqian, Woljang, and Gogol. But what would that accomplish? Neither Yisei nor Ilchui is in any condition to be burdened with another person's anger. Taking his frustration out on them wouldn't bring anyone back. Yisei quietly apologizes. The village head watches him in silence. Seeing a child trying to shoulder everything alone doesn't make her proud. It irritates her, not because Yisei is weak, but because he's convinced himself that he has to carry all of this by himself. Then the village head remembers something. It's already been a year since Yisei arrived at Guisid Temple. During that time, he's given Yisei plenty of tasks and responsibilities. But when he thinks about it, he realizes something troubling. He never actually taught the boy anything, so perhaps it's time to change that. The village head calls Yisei over. His first lesson is about to begin. Yisei sits quietly before the bodies of his fallen comrades. Behind him, the village head begins explaining the first lesson he promised to teach him. From this moment onward, they will perform a ritual for the dead, the consolation ceremony. The head explains that when demons, or those killed by demons, aren't properly laid to rest, their lingering resentment can wander through the heavens and eventually give rise to new demons. For someone who intends to continue hunting demons, understanding this ritual isn't optional. It's a basic responsibility. but Issei hesitates. He wonders whether someone like him should really be the one to console the dead. The head reassures him that the ritual was specifically designed so that even ordinary people without spiritual energy can perform it. Issei should have no trouble. But that's not what Issei means. His concern is much more personal. He believes the three might resent having him perform their final rite. The village head doesn't dismiss the concern. Instead, he gives Issei a simple answer. He won't know unless he tries. The head then begins teaching him how to perform the ceremony. Issei must hold the consolation prayer in his left hand and the ritual bell in his right. Then, with genuine reverence, he must recite the prayer for the departed. For once, this isn't a lesson about fighting demons. It's about facing the dead and confronting everything Issei has been carrying inside. Issei begins the consolation ceremony before the bodies of his fallen comrades. Holding the prayer in his left hand and the ritual bell in his right, he quietly recites the words, asking their spirits to depart peacefully and follow the path toward returning light. As the bell rings, the village head continues the prayer, wishing that despite the demonic energy that burden their souls, they will never fall into the abyss of the demon realm and will instead be reborn as humans in their next lives. But then something changes. The voices of Woljong and Goigol suddenly echo inside Issei's mind. They blame him for what happened. They remind him that everything began because someone like Issei came to Gusi Temple. One voice cries out in pain, asking why Issei abandoned him. The words cut deeper than any physical wound. For the first time since their deaths, Issei has managed to reach his fallen comrades, not by fighting, but by finally acknowledging their pain and offering them comfort. 3 blue streams of energy slowly circle around Issei as he finally breaks down in silence. After carrying the weight of his fallen comrades and their resentment alone, the emotions he had been suppressing finally surface. The village head watches him and gives him the one thing Issei has needed to hear all along. Now, stop being so hard on yourself. The village head explains that since the consolation ceremony succeeded, it's clear that the 3 fallen comrades don't truly hate Issei. They must have sensed that, despite everything that happened, Issei never intended to harm them. Issei admits that the realization feels strange. For so long, he's believed that what he did made him a monster. The thought that Woljong, Goigol, and Guichun might not hate him leaves him almost unable to understand his own feelings. The head immediately stops him from calling himself a monster. If Issei's biological parents could hear him say such things, they would be devastated. That makes Issei pause. He wonders whether people whose faces he doesn't even remember could really cry for someone like him. The village head then realizes something he never knew about Issei. The people who raised him in Subu village weren't his biological parents. Issei confirms it. They were his adoptive parents. They took him in and raised him as their own. For the first time, Issei tells the head about his past. He doesn't know where he was born or who his biological parents were. His earliest memory is simply waking up collapsed in the rain. A scholar who was well known in the area found him and eventually helped arrange for him to be adopted. His adoptive parents knew from the beginning that Issei was different from other children, but they never treated him differently. They loved him as their own son, and because of that kindness, Issei made a promise to himself. One day, he would repay them for everything they had given him. Issei finally reveals the deepest wound he's been carrying. His adoptive family was massacred by demons, and now he feels that revenge is all he has left. More than that, he clings to revenge because he hopes eliminating demons might somehow ease the guilt he carries over surviving. The village head is quietly moved. Issei wasn't even related to his family by blood, yet the hatred he carries toward the demons is this intense. That alone tells her how deeply he treasured the love they gave him. She asks Issei a difficult question. Does he really believe their deaths mean he can never repay them? Instead, why not fulfill the last wish they left behind? Issei doesn't immediately understand. The head explains that his adoptive parents treated him without prejudice despite knowing he was different. That means they probably wanted the same thing any parents would want for their child, to grow up safely, live well, and become a good person. If Issei can live according to that wish, then perhaps his parents can finally rest without regrets. For the first time, Issei sees another possibility. Even if the dead are gone, he can still do something for them. He can live for his parents and younger sibling. He can honor Gogol, Woljang, and Sir Guichun. And he can continue exterminating demons, not simply out of hatred, but while carrying out the wishes those people left behind. With that realization, Issei finally feels like he's found a path forward. He sincerely thanks the village head, saying he learned so much from her. The village head is left thinking. She only told Issei to grow up like a normal child. She never expected him to transform those words into yet another responsibility to carry on his shoulders. Still, she can't deny the relief on his face. For once, this child looks a little lighter. Because the way Issei has been living all this time is suffering in itself, and somehow, he's still trying to turn that suffering into a reason to keep moving forward, just like the people who came before him. The village head asks Issei how old he is now. Issei answers that he's 11. That means he still has 5 years before reaching 16. The age when he'll be old enough to take the entrance examination for one of the greatest demon hunting organizations in the world. The head introduces him to Daemudo. Issei immediately recognizes the name. He's already read about it in the temple library and knows it's an organization of cultivators. But that raises an important question. Would someone like him even be allowed to join? The village head explains that an immortal is a transcendent being who has overcome mortality and defied the laws of heaven. Cultivation is the path toward becoming one, while cultivators are those who walk that path. Daemudo follows a cultivation method known as the demon exercising spirit arts. Over countless years, its cultivators have exorcised countless demons and accumulated enormous amounts of spiritual energy. If Issei can enter Daemudo, he'll have the opportunity to properly learn those arts and finally understand the power within him. Then the head gives him the real reason she wants him to go. Perhaps, after learning everything Daemudo has to offer, Issei will finally discover the answer to the question that's haunted him for so long. Is he truly a monster or not? The village head continues explaining what makes cultivators different. Cultivators are people obsessed with reaching greater heights through cultivation. To achieve their goals, some are willing to perform strange and extreme deeds that ordinary people would never consider. Because of that, the world often views cultivators themselves as monsters. Then the head turns the idea back toward Issei. If Issei already feels like a monster among ordinary people, isn't he curious whether he'll still feel like one among actual monsters? The word catches Issei's attention. Monsters. For the first time, the idea seems to genuinely intrigue him. Issei makes his decision. When he turns 16, he'll leave for Daemudo and take the entrance examination. The head agrees that it's a wise choice, but there's still work to do before then. The head plans to finish exterminating the remaining demons first. Once she returns, she will begin conditioning his body so he'll be prepared for Daemudo's training. Issei accepts. Before she leaves, she gives him one final piece of advice. She suggests that he tell the other Dokaibi about himself as well. Issei has spent so much time assuming what others think of him, just as he misunderstood the wishes of his deceased family and comrades. Perhaps the other Dokaibi are doing the exact same thing with him. They may not understand Issei any more than he understands them, so maybe it's time to let them see who he really is. Ilchui lies alone in his room, still trapped in the memories of the friends he lost. He quietly repeats their names, Woljung, Goigol. Then the guilt overwhelms him. He was the one who suggested they go hunting the child ghost. If he hadn't made that suggestion, none of this would have happened. In his mind, their deaths are entirely his fault. Maybe he should die too. Suddenly, a finger pierces through the fabric covering the door. Issei's eye appears through the hole. He calmly calls out to Ilchui, introducing himself and explaining that he heard the boy hasn't left his room since that day, so he came to check on him. Issei then addresses the thing Ilchui has been terrified to face. He knows Ilchui was there when he attacked Woljung and Gogolol. Issei apologizes, explaining that he lives to exterminate demons, and whenever he faces one, eliminating it becomes the only thing he can think about. Issei admits that Ilchui probably thought he was a monster too. But something has changed. Issei has found another reason to keep living. He intends to accomplish the things the dead were unable to finish. For Sir Guixion, a warm-hearted man who genuinely cared about children, Issei will become an adult capable of caring for children himself. For Woljung, who dreamed of becoming a demon hunter, Issei will become the greatest demon hunter there is. And for Gogahol, Issei remembers his final wish. He wanted everyone to get along. Issei admits that words have never been his strength. He struggles to express his emotions, especially after everything that has happened. Still, he asks Ilchui if he'd be willing to let him come inside so they could talk. Issei doesn't care how long it takes. He wants to become friends with Ilchui. It's a simple request, but for Issei, it's a huge step. Instead of carrying everything alone, he's finally choosing to reach out to someone else. Before leaving, Issei casually apologizes for the hole he made in the window. He promises to patch it up before he goes. The scene shifts to Issei standing before Gonga and the cook. Gonga looks at him for a moment before suddenly pulling him into a tight hug, tears streaming down her face. Issei is caught off guard, but the warmth of the embrace says everything words can't. Nearby, the cook watches the two of them with a gentle smile. For the first time in a long while, Issei isn't standing alone. Issei approaches one of the demon hunters who had previously confronted him alongside the village head. He quietly holds out the man's robe, but the hunter only stares at him coldly. Issei doesn't argue or try to explain himself. He simply hands it over and walks away. It's a small moment, but it shows that the tension between them hasn't disappeared yet. The days slowly begin to pass, and Yisei's life starts changing. He spends time in the library reading while Gong-ah sleeps peacefully beside him. He trains under Mongrion, pushing his body harder with each session and gradually improving his martial arts. Outside, Yisei and Gong-ah play together in the snow, sharing moments of simple childhood happiness that would have been impossible for him before. Little by little, Yisei begins experiencing something he had almost forgotten how to have: a normal life. But there is one thing Yisei never gives up on. Whenever the days pass, he continues standing near Ilchui's house, quietly waiting for his friend to come outside. Days become months, months become years, and Yisei grows older. Yet no matter how much time passes, he still returns to the same place and waits. The camera lingers on the house. The small hole Yisei once made has been carefully patched up. Then another patch appears, and another. Each one is a quiet reminder that Yisei kept his promise. He never stopped waiting for Ilchui, and he never stopped believing that one day, Ilchui would finally open that door. Gong-ah finishes preparing food and steps out of the restaurant carrying a plate of rice balls. The moment she notices Yisei standing nearby, her expression brightens. She wonders why he didn't say anything when he arrived and instead just stood there silently. Yisei calmly explains that she looked busy, so he decided to wait. Gong-ah can only sigh at his overly patient nature. She tells him she'll serve the food right away, then happily calls out his name as she heads back inside. Even after all these years, Yisei still has that same quiet habit, waiting patiently instead of wanting to bother anyone. The village head watches Yisei eat and can't help but comment on how much of a glutton he's become. Yisei doesn't deny it. Chanmo's cooking is simply too good, and once he leaves, he won't get to eat it for a long time. So he's making sure to enjoy as much as he can while he's still here. The head reminds him that one of the side dishes he's eating is actually hers. Yisei immediately apologizes. After the brief food dispute, she asks whether Yisei has finished everything he needed to do before leaving. Yisei confirms that he's completed his preparations. The role.abmd martial arts the head taught him have already been recognized, and he's also finished reading every book in the library as she instructed. The head is genuinely surprised. The other role.abmd describe her training as nothing short of hell, yet Yisei somehow managed to endure it while also reading the entire library. Yisei, however, doesn't understand what the big deal is. Hell, I've never thought of it like that. For Yisei, apparently, surviving brutal training while reading an entire library is just another normal day. Yisei looks back on his time at Guisei Temple with genuine gratitude. He tells the village head that training under her has been more precious to him than any other period of his life. The head is caught off guard. The once dull boy can actually flatter someone now. She realizes just how much Yisei has grown. Gong-ah suddenly appears carrying food in both hands and excitedly points out that Yisei used to be smaller than her when they first met. The head enthusiastically shakes him around while Gong-ah is talking, and Yisei can barely keep hold of his food. He calmly points out that it's difficult to eat when she's shaking him like that. Later, Yisei stands outside Ilchui's house. He's leaving for Cheongsong-yong, where Daemudo is located, and today might be his final farewell. He admits that despite waiting for 5 years, he never managed to become close with Ilchui before leaving. Still, Yisei promises he'll return someday. Until then, he hopes Ilchui stays well. Yisei turns to leave. The camera lingers on the countless patches covering the door, physical proof of all the times Yisei came back and tried to reach him. Then suddenly, a finger pushes through one of the patches. Yisei freezes. A familiar voice finally speaks from behind the door. "So, you're finally leaving." Yisei turns around in disbelief. "Ilchui." For 5 years, Ilchui never answered Yisei. Not once. Yet Yisei kept coming back anyway, talking through the door and telling him about his life. Ilchui admits that until now, all he could do was listen to Yisei's stories. But this time, he wants Yisei to listen to his. Ilchui confesses that he still finds it difficult to leave his room. After what happened to Woljang, Gogajol, and Uncle Guiqian, after believing that he was responsible for their deaths, simply living like everyone else feels like a sin. For 5 years, Ilchui has been trapped behind that door. He can't stop wondering how much Woljang, Gorgol, and Uncle Guiqian must resent him. Sometimes the pain becomes so overwhelming that he even wonders if dying and joining them would finally make it disappear. He hates that he's weak enough to have thoughts like that. But during those 5 years, he listened to Yisei's stories through the door, stories about facing pain, continuing forward, and finding a reason to live despite everything that was lost. And somewhere along the way, Ilchui realizes something important. What he truly wanted wasn't atonement. He wanted a reason to keep living. Maybe listening to Yisei for 5 years has made him a little crazy, but Ilchui has made his decision. He wants to become like Issei. He promises that he'll eventually leave this room, and when he does, they will meet again. Issei quietly calls his name, Ilchui. He places his hand against the wall separating them. Then, with complete confidence, he gives Ilchui the answer he's been waiting for all these years. I'll wait. Issei prepares to leave Guise's temple, standing before the village head and the other villagers. The head asks if he's certain he doesn't want an escort, but Issei politely declines. It's a long journey, and he'd rather make the trip alone. Before he leaves, the head hands him a dagger. Issei immediately recognizes it as the Meridian cutting blade, a valuable weapon, and hesitates to accept something so precious. But the head refuses to let him decline. She explains that it was prepared with family in mind, then tells him to take everything with him. The villagers begin gathering around Issei, each offering him something for his journey. One gives him a gift as repayment for all the odd jobs he's handled over the years. Another apologizes for misunderstanding him for so long. Then someone hands him a valuable spirit stone, explaining that even cultivators consider it precious and telling him to use it whenever he needs it. Before long, Issei is practically buried under all the gifts. He struggles to keep everything in his arms as he looks around at everyone. Overwhelmed by their kindness, he quietly thanks them. Thank you, everyone. For someone who once believed he had no family left, Issei is leaving Guise Temple with something he never expected to have again. People who genuinely care about him. The village head watches Issei surrounded by gifts and quietly reflects on how much things have changed. Even the Dokaibi who once disliked Issei have grown attached to him after all these years. It's a relief that the misunderstandings surrounding him have finally disappeared. Then Gong-a approaches Issei with tears in her eyes. She calls his name and offers him one last gift. Issei thanks her and asks what it is. The head explains that it's a milk horn, a valuable ingredient used in making elixirs. When a young Dokaibi grows toward adulthood, their old horn naturally falls away as a new one develops, much like how humans lose their baby teeth. That discarded horn is known as a milk horn. Because it carries such personal meaning, the head tells Issei to think of Gong-a whenever he uses it. Issei is genuinely touched. Something this precious was given to him? Then the village head suddenly takes the conversation in a completely unexpected direction. She jokingly suggests that if Issei is truly grateful, he should leave Gong-a with a little something of his own before departing. Apparently, she's curious about what would happen with a human Doka-Ebi hybrid. Gong-a immediately turns bright red and stammers in embarrassment. The head innocently asks if she doesn't want that. Gong-a insists that's not what she meant. Meanwhile, Issei simply looks at the two of them and smiles, completely amused by the situation. Before leaving Guisa Temple, Issei turns toward everyone who raised him and gives them a sincere farewell. He asks them all to stay well. Even though he came from a different race, they welcomed him as one of their own family, and he'll never forget the kindness they showed him while raising him. The village head tells him not to worry about them. Instead, she wants him to focus on becoming stronger and reminds him that he's always welcome to return whenever he has the time. Gong-a can't hold back her emotions. She calls out to Issei, telling him not to get hurt and, most importantly, to come back, to have a safe journey, eat properly, and never forget them. Issei listens quietly before turning back toward them. There's one thing he hasn't told them yet. He admits that he's going to miss them all. The head answers that they'll miss him too. Meanwhile, Gong-a quietly wonders if she should have gone with him after all. Issei takes one last look at everyone. Then he says his final goodbye. Then, I'll be going. 5 years have passed, and Issei finally reaches Cheongseongyang, a massive mountain rising high above the clouds. This is where Daimudo is located, and where Issei will take the entrance examination. At the registration area, candidates line up to have their information recorded. When it's Issei's turn, the registrar asks for his name, Issei. His age, 16. His place of origin, Subu village. Then comes the question of affiliation. Issei hesitates. He considers mentioning Guisei Temple, but ultimately decides against it. None. The registrar doesn't question him and simply hands him a document. There's one final requirement before he can proceed. Issei must copy a declaration stating that he accepts responsibility for any injury or death that may occur during the entrance examination. He also agrees not to reveal anything about the exam to outsiders and accepts whatever punishment or disadvantage follows if he breaks that rule. Issei takes the paper. His journey to Daimudo has officially begun. After completing his registration, Issei asks the registrar an important question. Are there many casualties during the entrance exam? The registrar doesn't sugarcoat the danger. Instead, he asks Issei whether knowing that would make him give up. Issei answers without hesitation, no. The registrar hands him his registration tag and warns him to keep it safe. If he loses it, he won't be allowed to register again. Issei takes the tag and leaves. The exam is scheduled for 2 days later, at the beginning of the hour of the goat 1 p.m., at the training grounds near the academy entrance. Issei carefully memorizes every detail so he won't get lost. But now that he's actually registered, he begins noticing something strange about Cheongsang-yeong. Before arriving, he didn't think much about the place. Now, walking through its streets, he can feel the difference. The people seem different. The atmosphere feels different. Perhaps it's because Daemudo, the greatest demon hunting organization, is located here. And suddenly, Issei remembers what the village head told him. Maybe this really is a place where monsters live. Issei looks up toward the vast sky above Cheongsang-yeong, his thoughts drifting back to everything the village head told him. If this truly is a place filled with monsters, then there's one thing he wants to know. Will he actually meet one? Someone stronger, someone more terrifying, someone who makes even Issei feel like the lesser monster. With quiet curiosity, he wonders, will I get to meet one? A monster greater than me?